Hey, this is David from the Modern Martial Artist. We're going to try out a podcast today talking about three different fights. Lomachenko versus Marriaga. We're going to talk about John Jones versus Cormier, which was an incredible fight. But let's start off. What I'm watching right now is Lomachenko versus Marriaga. I'm watching it on YouTube illegally because I'm a millennial and we're all dirty thieves. Um, Lomachenko, they just showed the replay of him getting caught with that great kind of overhand chopping right that Marriaga has, and I was wondering if that was going to give Lomachenko some trouble, and I didn't think it was at all. But he caught him a couple times, and he varied it up with a body blow. I remember watching this fight in Alaska, and I remember thinking like, yeah, this is a tune-up fight. It's fine to be cocky, but this cocky. But I guess you kind of do have to be that cocky if you want to find out what your weaknesses are. And I think he went into this fight with the intent, Lomachenko went into this fight with the intent of pressing forward hard. He said before he doesn't want to be just a defensive fighter. He doesn't want to be a counterer. He doesn't want to only use feints. He wants to be good at everything. He wants to be good at long range, short range, clinching, all that kind of stuff. I think, except for dirty tactics, I've never seen him really do. He's definitely not a Duran type of fighter, but definitely he was trying to find his weaknesses, and a couple times he'd push forward really hard, and there's only so much you can block at the same time. You could block all your head, you could block all your body, but there's always going to be, if the person knows the correct angle, there's always going to be a spot there open. And Lomachenko got hit in the body, I think, a good deal. It wouldn't surprise me if he had some bruised ribs, actually, because the guy he's fighting, Marriaga, has knocked out a number of people. And he got hit in the head a couple times. But I think he's such a smart fighter, he's going to go back and look at that and see how he could be more aggressive with that. How he could really, defend against that a lot better than he was doing in this fight. But, if you consider how close he stayed in the pocket the whole time, how close he was, he's not at long range and then darting in and out. He's at mid range. He can be hit where he's standing. The whole time he can be hit where he's standing. And how little he got hit is massively impressive with how aggressive he was being. So that's pretty much all I want to say about this fight. I'm going to fast forward and look at the highlights so we could kind of go over the knockout blows. He wore him down. Like he always does, he wore him down and made him quit, but I want to see where he knocked him down. I guess it's not a knockout, it's a knockdown, if I remember. I don't know. I was buzzed. I was in a bar, I went to visit some family in Alaska, and it's beautiful up there, but there's not really much to do. And finally got to go to a bar after. I know it sounds terrible, but I was in my grandpa's cabin looking out at the woods, which, but for me, who's used to the internet all the time, I was really craving at least some kind of entertainment. He didn't have any internet. We went to a bar, and I saw it there, and yeah, it was. I don't even remember what the hell the first thought. I don't even remember why the hell I was telling you guys that. I'm sorry. I'll ramble less in the next podcast. I decided to just do this as a one-off. But yeah, I remember watching the fight there and thinking, thank God, some entertainment. And man, it was entertaining, but it was entertaining in the way of watching someone perform, a very good talent. You go to watch someone dance or something. It's like Marriaga wasn't even there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's like Lomachenko was there to show off his talent and his skill set, and it wasn't, it wasn't a great battle for the ages. We'll put it like that. And I remember watching that's what I was getting to. I remember watching the knockout on a tiny screen and thinking, really, that knocked him down? And I think a lot of it was just balance. I think Lomachenko can hit hard, and in a lot of ways, it's more impressive to knock through someone's guard, not hit them cleanly, and still knock them down. But I think a lot of it was just balance, and I think a lot of those, the way Lomachenko throws those punches with kind of a medium kind of intensity without a lot of power, I think that can accumulate over a number of rounds and get the guy kind of punch drunk a little bit. One or two shots from someone who hits you hard and clean. I think that's how Lomachenko makes you feel, but over a matter of rounds. So, yeah, let's look at the knockdown. Yeah, he was just backing up trying to get out of there, and it looked more like Lomachenko. Like, he likes to break people, in the same way that Ali broke Foreman mentally before he broke him physically. Lomachenko just likes to break people. Well, it was on the back of his ear. Now that I look at it from another angle, it didn't go through his guard. It was on the back of his ear. It still didn't look like that clean a shot, but man, he was just on, off balance and just ran his ass backwards. So let's see. Time to look at another fight, John Jones versus Cormier, and I saw this one actually. I missed most of that event. I had to watch it later, and I was really bummed about that. How I missed most of that. Let me go ahead and type in here, Jones versus Cormier 2. Yeah, so I missed it, and then they told us the wrong time. I can't remember what the hell I was doing. I think I was working or something, and I called a bar to ask what time the main event was, and they misjudged it massively. So I just saw the very last part of that fight and watched it later when I got home. And when I got home, I knew I had to do a breakdown right away, and I got it done within a couple hours because what Jones did went beyond the minutia of the strikes. It went way beyond Jones just having a superior plan, walking into there knowing that he was going to take the correct angle. That the Jones is very much JKD principles, Judo principles. There's a couple annoying channels on here on YouTube that tick me off because they compare every fighter that's ever lived to Bruce Lee. And you can't do that because Bruce Lee never competed at a high level. And you can't do that, so there's really no footage to compare what he'd do in a competition. Bruce Lee was all about street fighting. And then you can't do that because if you try hard enough, you can make it look like anything, And there's this big battle going online about, well, Bruce Lee was just an actor, and that's really stupid to think that. That just means that you haven't done your research. And then there's people who are saying you could knock out Tyson, which is even stupider. To think anyone in Bruce Lee's weight class could knock out Tyson is stupid to begin with. But then to think that someone who wasn't used to the rules, who hadn't risen through the ranks, could do that is beyond stupid too. So where I stand is I view Bruce Lee as an insanely talented individual and an insanely talented martial artist. And I think if his weight class, if he went up with the rules, trying to accommodate his style to those rules, then in his weight class, and I think he weighed 135 to 150 his whole life. Definitely not Tyson weight class, but for damn sure. But man, he could do some damage. And a lot of people will say, well, he never knew grappling. Actually, he was one of the first people to explore so many different kinds of styles, and he did know grappling. He wasn't a master at it, but I think he would have performed very well. And John Jones is very much uses his principles, and he uses the 3 weapons that Bruce Lee specifically recommended. And whether you believe it's intentional or not, he definitely used the hell out of an eye jab, which is longest weapon to nearest target. That's what and taking the shortest possible route, which is what Bruce Lee always touted. And yeah, he used the sidekick right there, just snap it down, and with such power. And man, Jones doesn't load up a lot like he loaded up. If John Jones always did a Bruce Lee kind of sidekick where you, like kind of the savant kind of sidekick where you shuffle into it and then you raise your knee way up high and then you just slam down on the kneecap. If Jones has done that a couple times, but he's never landed flush. I think if he landed flush with one of those right on the kneecap, you'd be seeing a knee bent in half. It'd be illegal within the UFC, which might actually be why he doesn't do that, because he wants to keep that trick he has for himself. He wants to keep that technique, and he really doesn't want that to become illegal. But if he put full force shuffle into there'd be I can't remember the name of the movie. There's this bad movie in the 90s where the guy revealed he was an alien at the end, and then it folded over, and it was really dumb. So it looked like that. It'd be really bad. And then Jones also uses was, been it's called the oblique kick pretty much because Joe Rogan named it that. But that's more a defensive kick. And Jones came in thinking he was going to use that and using that. And then what Cormier did, which was brilliant, yeah, he hand fought him, And even if you know the basics, that's probably what you want to do in a wrestling situation. But what Cormier did is he brought a wrestling solution to a striking problem. Jones was leaving his hand out there, blocking his vision, bothering him, jabbing at his eyes, and then Cormier just decided to hand fight him for a superior position, a superior striking position, rather than a superior wrestling position, which is actually usually both. It's funny how it ends up being both. Very much like Roberto Duran, and kind of simple but kind of genius. And they're actually clasping hands, like a lot of times. A lot of times in this fight, they'll clasp both hands. They look like when girls, do that thing where they haven't seen each other in a while, they clasp hands and they do that little jump up and down thing. That's what it looks like they're doing a couple times here. And then Cormier was doing a great job setting up attacks off of that. Just a wonderful job. He was doing a good job in the first fight of dirty boxing on the inside and kind of outstriking him and out in the clinch. But he was really doing it this time. He was giving Jones some trouble. And then, of course, he was attacking the lead leg, which is when Jones comes up with that oblique kick, he mostly does it with his back leg. You just chop it down. You chop down the front leg faster than the back leg can get to you. And Cormier is using his back leg a lot, but I think just, when Jones does an oblique kick, just do a side kick to his knee, his front knee, and that'll discourage him. When he does a side kick, all you really have to do is sidestep, and you're good. He's on one foot. He's leaning back when he does it too, so it'll take him. His balance isn't that disturbed, but it'll take him. You got options. The fact that no one figured out how to deal with those two things for so long is kind of ridiculous, but they've been around for longer now. And of course, there's so many aspects of MMA that you can't find a solution to everything. Whenever something new comes up, it takes a while to learn how to deal with it. And man, Cormier just hit him with a good solid right there, and then clinches, which is very smart. He's a wrestler. That's where he's comfortable. But I think this is where Jones starts circling around. And it looks like Jones' front leg is not doing too great there. I think he got hurt with one of those kicks. But man, Jones is not doing too well where I'm watching right now. Cormier is just kind of having his way with them. Let's see when Jones starts adjusting. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. Let's see where he starts circling here. Yeah, so Jones is starting to circle now. And that's a great thing to do because Cormier doesn't have the best balance in the world, I guess. But which I don't want to say because in some ways he does. Wrestling-wise, he has excellent balance. But as far as just coming after an opponent, I guess from a higher level where he's throwing strikes and he can't be that low. When he's not charging low, when he's coming up high, he doesn't have the best balance here. He's just kind of plodding back and forth. And it's easy to catch him in between the steps because they're so obvious. It's just this concurrent rhythm of dump, ba-dump, 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 ba-dump. And Jones starts circling away here and forcing him to chase him and turn so he's off balance. And then Jones does something that Willie Pep used to do all the time, which is a great boxer that I've recently been looking into. Very old-timey featherweight, I think from the 40s or 50s. And that guy was a absolute genius at footwork. And he'd circle around and stop short, which is what Jones did here. He'd stop short and let the guy move past him into a bad angle for him. It's essentially you take the superior angle by stop moving. Your opponent thinks you're going to keep moving, but you don't. And Pep was a master at that. And then he'd rebound off his step. He'd go left, right, and then rebound off of one of those to load up power, kind of a plyometric punch, I guess. Load up on your leg and then kind of duck away to the side, and then rebound off, and then just bam, just hit him. And that's what Jones is doing here. He just circles and then stops and throws a low punch to the body, and then the low punch to the body is what got Cormier lowering that hand and leaning forward each time. And eventually Jones just threw a kick instead, and that's what finished him. After that kick, I don't think there's any way he could have survived. And I felt so bad for him watching him cry. And there was this jackass making fun of him. This scrawny little fucker. I don't want to say short because I'm short, but he's this scrawny short guy who's probably never been in a fight in his life, would get absolutely destroyed by a guy half his size. I'm pretty sure like a little person could take him out, or a child. And he starts filming and making fun of Cormier for crying. It just pisses me off, shit like that. It pisses me off really bad. Because he's never tried anything probably half as dangerous as getting in the ring as Jon Jones. If you have to pick between getting into the ring with Jon Jones and a low-impact car crash with your seatbelt off, that's a serious decision you have to make. Assuming that you can't tap out of the fight, you're in there for, let's say you're in there 5 minutes. It's you against Jon Jones for 5 minutes, or one car crash. Low impact, like maybe 20, 30 miles an hour, and your seatbelt's off. You're allowed to brace yourself, and you come up with whatever strategy you want to do. Maybe you have an airbag. Those things still hurt. May or may not go off at the impact, Or you get in the ring with Jon Jones, who's massively pissed off at you. And that's what, and he wasn't crying because he was scared. That's not the point I'm making. He was crying because he just, he lost something that was very important to him. Something he'd worked hard for his entire life, and he lost it to someone that he really hated. Not just that, but his brain was gone. There's normally, as a functioning adult, you're no longer a toddler. You no longer cry when you can't get a piece of candy, but you still feel that annoyance. The difference is that you hold it in. But after you take those hard punches like that and get knocked out, I've never been knocked out. I've been rocked. It's like a lot of your defenses are gone. Not just your movement and how well you perform and how well you function, but all of a sudden that annoyance. It's kind of like you're a kid again. You can't deal with emotional aspects as well either. You're just kind of gone and nothing's up. It's like you haven't slept for 3 days. So, and then I like that Joe Rogan apologized for coming up and interviewing him. But there's no shame that Cormier cried after that. He shouldn't have been interviewed, but honestly, I wouldn't have been upset if he just left the ring, like Forrest did after Silva. It's humiliating. It's humiliating in front of a lot of people, and he chose to stay in there. He chose to give the interview, even though his emotions were kind of running away from him, even though he was not in the best place. He was in one of the lowest places of his life, and he, even though he was crying, he really took that like a man, and nothing but respect to him. And then Jones was highly respectful to him too. Hopefully it lasts. I mean, I don't even want to get into Jones' past because I try to look at him for his techniques. And we'll see if he becomes a better person. Maybe he already has, but it's hard to tell. Respect is something that's earned, and he needs to earn the respect of the fans. He has their respect for his incredible talent, but as a person, he doesn't have most of their respect yet, and that's why. That's probably why. I did forget that Cormier walked away from when they were gonna raise Jones' hands. I did forget about that. I still don't blame him too bad. He gave the interview after that. So yeah, there's really nothing left to say there besides what an incredible fight, and I'm looking forward to what Jones is gonna do next. And man, this thing is getting long, like really long. I think I'll talk about Ollie versus Foreman in the next podcast. Maybe, yeah, definitely the next podcast, because there's a lot to talk about there. I've already droned on for 26 minutes. I'm going to do, I think, 3 to 5 podcasts and see how people are liking it. Maybe I'll give up earlier if they hate it. If they like it, then I'll definitely do it more often, once a week or twice a week at the most. I'm not going to slow down the technique breakdowns at all. If anything, it'll help give me ideas for it and help it move along a little bit quicker. If you guys have any questions for me, anything you'd like me to talk about in the next podcast, maybe McGregor versus Mayweather, any of that kind of stuff, any videos you'd like to see, post your questions below, and I'll try to get through to most of them, depending on how many I get. I'll try to answer most of those questions, especially from the people who ask them early. So yeah, hope you guys like the podcast. Let me know what you'd like to hear, what you wouldn't like to hear, all that kind of stuff. Hope you're having a great day, and happy training.